Hi everyone, welcome back to the Programming Fields. I'm Umesh Rana, and in the last few episodes, we built a complete CRUD system using Laravel 12 plus Livewire Starter Kit, and even we added custom pagination from scratch without any DataTable package. And here we have the implementation of those all functionalities, whatever we have completed till now. Here we have the Livewire pagination applied on this table, and this is Livewire Starter Kit, and we have used Livewire Flux component. But Livewire Flux component provide the table component, but that is a paid one. So what if you want to implement the search, sorting, filtering, then you will have to implement these all functionalities manually. But these functionalities can take a lot of time in order to implement this. So why don't we go with Livewire DataTable package? Yes, so Livewire provides a DataTable package. So if we search for Livewire DataTable, here we have a package as Rappasoft Laravel Livewire tables. So this is the GitHub repository. Further, we have this official documentation. So let's navigate on this. Inside this version dropdown, we have the latest version as version 3. So let's navigate on this. Next, we have this introduction. So if we'll check the introduction. So in the introduction, it is mentioned, this is a plugin which is created for Livewire DataTables. So by using this package, we can implement DataTable functionality in the Livewire. So before going ahead, here we have this requirements. So inside the requirements, these are the following prerequisites. Okay. So this needed at least PHP 8.1, Laravel 10 and Livewire 3. So in our current project, we have used Laravel 12 with Livewire Starter Kit. So here we already have the Livewire 3 version. And we are good to go to install this Rappasoft Livewire DataTables. So let's navigate to this installation tab. Here this has given the installation command. Let's copy this and let's navigate to the terminal and I will paste it. And this has started the installation. Yeah, the installation has been done. After installation, let's navigate to the documentation again. And in the sidebar, here we have the commands. So we will have to navigate to the commands. And firstly, we will have to create a DataTable component provided by Rappasoft. So let's copy this command and I will navigate to the terminal again. I will paste this command and here we will have to change the component name. So I'm going to create this for projects table because we already have this projects listing here. So I will be applying the DataTable on this. So I will create this for projects table. So firstly, I'll name it projects table. And next, this is model name. So I will specify the model name as project. Let's hit enter. And this DataTable component has been created. Now if we'll check out to the app Livewire, here we have this projects table component created. We already specified the project model that is already mapped here. And based on the project table migration, this has already added these columns attribute. So this is very simple. This has already fetched all the available columns inside the project tables. If I'll show you the project table migration, so inside the database migrations, here we have the projects table in which we have the field like ID, name, slug, description, status, deadline, project logo, and the soft deletes. So respectively, this has already created these all columns inside the columns array. We have the ID, name, slug, description, deadline, status, project logo, and the date columns. Additionally, if you want to create and manage more columns, you can manage it from here. And that I will show you. So firstly, we'll have to render this component in order to render the data table. So when we created the data table component, this has created the class component only. And respective to this, this has not created any view or blade file. So if we'll check inside the resources, views, here we don't have any data table component related to this projects table. Only this has created the class. Now you might be wondering like how this is gonna work. So inside any blade or view, we will directly render this component. So initially I was rendering this table for rendering the projects listing. So this is our index component. This is basically a Livewire component. And in order to render the data table, it is not recommended that it will render inside the Livewire component only. It can render with the Laravel view also. So here inside this index blade, At the top, just after this button, I will render the table component. Okay. So in order to render this data table component, I will navigate to the documentation again, and here we have the rendering option. Inside the rendering, we have the syntax in order to call the component. So we can call the component in this way. So let's copy this syntax and let's navigate to the code editor. And here I will paste this. But what I want, before rendering this component, I want to wrap this in a div, and I will add one class as DataTable wrapper. So I want to wrap this inside this div itself. And further we have to change this component name to projects table, because in our case we have the component as projects table. Now if we'll navigate to the browser and if we'll check the result, yeah, we have the data table component rendered. We have the search option. We have all the available columns which are listed inside the model. Next we have this row per page. And at the bottom side, we have the total number of records. And by default, this pagination is not showing because we have total 8 records here. And in order to show the pagination, we need 10 plus records. So here all the columns are visible. We have the ID, name, slug, description, deadline, status, project logo, created at, and updated at. So let's do some customization inside this. Firstly, I'll remove this created at and updated at, so that we will try to keep this layout. So let's remove this created and updated at. Also, I will remove this slug. This is rendering. Now we have to style this status. So in the status, we added this custom badge, right? So let's apply this style. So in the official documentation of this Rappasoft, here we have the list of available columns. So inside the column section, we have the creating columns. Now inside this creating columns, we can create and render the columns using this column make method. Okay. We can set the label, attributes like classes and all. Okay. Further, we have the other column types. So inside the other column types, we have these all columns available. We have the image column, link column. So further, we have the available methods. So inside this left sidebar, we have this available methods. If we'll check out this available methods, we have the styling attribute. We can style the table. So there are multiple attributes. Here we can apply multiple sorting column. So we will check out these all. Firstly, we will render the raw HTML. So here we have this rendering HTML. So we can render the HTML as well in order to style the table cell. So in our previous example, so in this TD, we were rendering the custom badge. Okay. So what I will do, I will copy this style from this index bleed. So I will navigate to this. Here we used this match in order to style this. So I will copy these lines, and inside this component, here I will create one custom function so that I can apply this on that particular TD. So I will define a method name just like render status. And inside this method, I will define one array of colors, and inside this, I will define one array and I will paste those all array. And here I will receive one dynamic parameter which will be string status, and I will specify the return type as string. Now based on this incoming status, I will check if this is inside the status, because we have the status like pending, in progress, completed and cancelled. So whatever the status will be coming dynamically, I will get that respective class. So here I will check if it is there, then it will return that class. Else I will give one default as bg gray like 300. I will set the text gray 800 and border gray as 500. And I will assign this in a variable like class. And from here I will return one span, and I will style it in order to display it in badge format. And inside this, I will render the label. So firstly, we'll have to get the label from this status. So I will create one variable as label, and we have to make this in capitalized format because the status is in lowercase format. Okay. So what I will do, I will use UC first function so that this will capitalize the first letter of this status, and I will pass this status. Also, we have to replace this dash with empty string. So I will be using str replace function, and inside this we have this dash, and that I want to remove it with empty string, and this will remove from this status. Now inside this span I will return this label. So I will be using string interpolation. So this will return the label. Also I have to apply the dynamic class. So I will add the class property, and for this again I will pass this class, and here I will use backslash in this way. Okay, this is done. Now if we'll check the index blade, we have to add the additional classes as well. So let's copy this and I will add it here. Okay, this is done. Now I will copy this render status function and I want to call it for this status column. So here we have this status column. So by default, this has called the sortable method. That means if we'll check the application, here this has added the sortable functionality. So whenever we will apply the sorting, here this has the applied sorting as column name of description, and the sorting is applied in the ascending order. That means A to Z. Similarly, if we'll click again, this has applied the sorting in the descending order for the same column. So I will show you these all properties one by one. Firstly, let's render this HTML here. So in order to render the HTML, let's check out the documentation again. And here we'll have to use this format function. So let's copy this format function alongside this HTML. And here, after this sortable, I will paste that. Now here I will remove this HTML and I will call that method, which is render status. And inside this method, we have to pass this status. So this status will be like value. Okay. So this is callback function, and inside this, we'll have the value of this status. If we'll check the browser, and yes, we have the status column rendered. Now next we have to render the image. So we had the project logo and it was showing like this. Currently this has rendered in the string format. So we have to render it in image element. So for rendering the image, this Livewire DataTable package provides image column. So if we'll check out the documentation here, we have other columns. So inside the other columns type, here we have the image columns. So if you want to render the image, we can use this image column function. So let's replace this with the normal column. This is our project logo. So I will replace this column with image column. Okay. And for rendering the image column, we have to pass the storage path. So if we'll check out the documentation again, here this has used location function. So let's copy this location function and here I will add that. Now inside this, let me just align this. Now inside this, we have to pass the storage path. So for rendering the image, I will be using asset function. Okay. And inside the asset, I will be using storage because we have the image in the storage folder and that symbolic link is added in the public folder. So I will be using asset storage. Okay. And let's remove this. This is not needed. And from the row, we have to extract the project logo. And let's remove this .jpg. This is not needed. And we will have to import this image column. So this has imported. Now if we'll check out the browser, and here we have the broken image path. So if we'll just inspect this, and we can see this has not created the image path here properly. Only this has created this storage path, but we cannot see the file name. So for that, we will have to render this project logo in the normal column as well. So what I will do, I will copy this column and I will paste it. And inside this, I will render this project logo column. So we have rendered this project logo. Now if we'll check the browser, and yes, we have this project logo in this string and then the image has been rendered. So in the Livewire DataTable package, in order to use the image column, you will have to render the actual image in the raw column, and then this will be applied here because that column must be visible in the DOM. But here we don't want to keep these two columns because these both are for the project logo. So what I will do, I will hide this conditionally using hide if. Okay, and by default I will set this to true so that this will be hidden by default. Now if we'll check, yes, that column is hidden now, and instead we are showing this project logo. So this is working. Now next, after the project logo, we have to display the actions column. So for rendering the action columns, again we will be using raw HTML because we have the actions button styled in this format. So for that, I will navigate to this index blade again, and if we'll check the actions column, here we have the action columns which is rendered inside the Flux model trigger, because if we'll click, this is opening the model using the Flux trigger component. And we were managing all the operations like create, view, and update in the same model, right? So for the actions column, we have to use it in the same way. So I will just copy this entire TD from here, and I will create a sub view. So inside this projects folder itself, I will create a sub view like action columns.blade.php. Okay. And inside this, I will paste it. Now, instead of this TD, I will replace this with div. Okay. Now let's align this. This is done. Now I will navigate to this project table component. Now we have to render the actions column. So in order to render the action column, let's check out the official documentation again. And here inside the available methods, so at the right side, we have the labels. If we'll click on this, here we have the description as if you have a column that is not associated with a database column, because for the actions column, these are not coming from the database. So in order to render those columns, we have to use the labels function, and this labels function is available in different format. Here we can render this in plain label, we can render as HTML, we can pass the data attribute over there. Okay, so I will be using this HTML one. I will copy it and I will edit here after this image column. This is our action column, and I will name it as actions. Now here we have to render the view. Okay, so for rendering the view, I will pass the view function here. So if we'll scroll to top, here we have the view function, and we can call it in this way. So let's call this view function. So I will just remove this and I will paste that view function. Now inside this view function, we have to pass that particular view name. So we have the Livewire .projects.action columns. You have to give the correct path. Now if we'll check, yes, the path is added correctly. Now inside this, we have to pass the parameter which is project, so that we can render the project data over there. So what I will do, from here, I will use with function. Okay. And inside this with, I will pass the array, which will be project, and I will pass the current row, which is current project data. Okay, this is done. Now if we'll check the browser, and yes, we have this actions column rendered properly. And if we'll compare it from previous one, yeah, we have the same layouts. Okay. Now if we'll try clicking on this view action, and yes, the previous view, edit and delete functionality is working same. Okay. Everything is working expectedly. If we'll try deleting on this project, yes, the project has been deleted. All right. So this is working. Now let's work on the search functionality. So currently, if we'll try searching with any value like Alpine.js, we can see this search is not working. So let's navigate to the code editor, and here inside every columns, I will use searchable function, so that when we'll search with the keyword, this will apply with this column. So let's quickly apply on every columns. This is for deadline. and this is for status. So I will apply the searchable as well. Now if we'll check in the browser, if we'll refresh it, and yes, based on the entered keyword, this has already applied the filter. Here we have the clear icon. If we'll click on this, yes, this is removed. If we'll try search with status, which is completed, yeah, this has filtered that. Now if we'll check out the official documentation again, here we have different functions for rendering the different columns, like we have the date columns, we have the boolean, and every functionality we can manage it dynamically from this class itself. So let's suppose if you want to hide this show per page, then we have the column for this. So inside the available methods, here we have the search. So inside the search, we have the available method. We can apply the custom search over there. If you want to disable that, so I will just copy this function and I will add it inside the config. So this will just hide this search feature. Now we don't have the search visible. Same thing, we can hide it for this set per page visibility. So for this provides the function as set per page visibility status, and I will set this to false. Now if we'll check, yes, that column has hidden now. Same thing for this column. Okay, so you can just play around the documentation and you can apply different properties. By default, I will remove this so that the search and the per page will be visible. Here for no data found, you can set the property. If your table has no data, then we can set the default message as set empty message function. And here we can set no data found. Okay, just like this. So when you won't have the data inside the table, this will render that message. Also, we can customize this row per page record. So for that, this provides one function as $this set per page accepted. And inside this array, let's define the array like 5, 10, 25, 50, 100. Okay, just like this. And if we'll check in the browser, if we'll refresh, in this list, we have the given array list. We can set the default here. So for this, next we have the function like set default per page. And inside this, I will pass the value as 5. Now if we'll refresh, here we have this default selected value as 5. From here, we can just set those columns which we want to show. So we can just hide these columns if you don't want to see. And if you notice here one more thing, whatever you select from here, these all are visible in the query string. And if you don't want to show these all in the query string, you can apply one more function as $this set query string to disabled. And if we'll check, let me just refresh this and I'll remove this query string first. Now if we'll apply any filter from here, we can see the query string is not showing in the browser. Also, this supports Bootstrap as well. Currently, if you check, we have applied Tailwind CSS over here. If you want to change the theme to Bootstrap 4 or 5, this supports that as well. So for that, you will have to change the theme here while rendering this component. So inside this index component, here just above this, we had rendered this Livewire projects table. Now if we'll check out the documentation, under the rendering, here we have the theme attribute, and here we can pass the theme as Bootstrap 4 or Bootstrap 5. So we can pass the properties, and also we can publish the configuration if you want customization over there. But that is not recommended. So inside this recommended, here we have this installation, and further we have this publish the tables configuration. So if you want to publish the configuration, this will create the table config inside the config folder. From there, you can manage the theme and all. Okay. Also, if you don't want to publish this configuration, You can pass the theme directly here in the view while rendering this component. So you will have to pass the props like theme. And if you have the Bootstrap, this supports Bootstrap 4 or Bootstrap 5 in this way. And by default, this is rendering using the Tailwind. Now if we'll check using Bootstrap 5, this will break that CSS. And here this said you are not connected to the internet because Bootstrap 5 CSS is not available here. If you will add the CDN or CSS, this will work expectedly. As of now, I will just remove this and I will go with the Tailwind only. So this has rendered properly. This also supports the bulk action. So if you want to add the bulk action here by adding the checkbox, you can just add it inside the config. So here I will add $this set bulk action, and inside this array, if you want to give the button name like exported selected, this will call a function, and I will give a button name like export. Further, you want to export it as a PDF, then you can add it inside this. Now if we'll check in the browser, here we have the bulk actions button enabled. Inside this, we have two options like export and PDF. You can change the button name to Excel or export to Excel, export to PDF. And when you will click on this export to Excel, this will trigger this method. So in the left side, this is the method name, that means the action, and this is the label. So if you'll click on this export to Excel, this will throw error as exported selected is not available. So if you will define this method here, just like public function exported selected, and here I will add dump and die hello. And if we'll click, yes, this has triggered the custom export option. And for exporting the Excel or PDF, you can use the respective package like Mat Website Excel or PDF library, and from there you can export the data. So this is a huge improvement over the basic table and custom pagination we built earlier. If you have not watched the previous CRUDs plus pagination episodes, I will link them in the description. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe Programming Fields for more real-world Laravel and Livewire content. And let me know in the comments if you want a full playlist on Livewire table customization, including filters, badges, columns visibility, toggles, export and more. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.